Good afternoon. We're live on a nice rainy Tuesday afternoon.
Hey, Bo, how you doing?
Good?
Good, and we have Mandy and Barry and Nicole, a special guest tonight. Nicole Metcalf, thank you for joining us.
You're welcome.
Um, yeah, so it's actually really nice and sunny here on the East Coast. I'm in Georgia right now, so nice nice day here on the East Coast. Um, so Nicole, you maybe what we can do is just talk a little bit. Well, let me just start by saying we're going to go. The plan for this session is to go through another couple of rounds of vetting the project. We're currently on the topic of vetting the project, and we'll go through that in a bit. But I'm wondering if it might be good for us to talk a little bit about your project, and this will be an interesting discussion, I think, because your husband had sent me an email or a text this afternoon asking about some things on new construction, and rather than even discuss anything at all, I thought we'd just start with a brand new, fresh slate here, and maybe you can just describe a little bit of what your situation is and what your questions might be, and we can all share our thoughts. And Barry usually announces this, but anybody who's listening out there, please feel free and actually share any questions or comments or thoughts that you have as we're going along. So, would you care to share the story, Nicole?
Sure. So, are you still getting a lot of feedback from me?
No, that's perfect. No, thank you.
Okay, perfect. All right, so we've got a borrower that we're working with. He's a general contractor, so he's experienced in new construction, rehabs, fix and flips. He's been around for a while.
Yeah.
Um, and he's approached us about a subdivision that has about 18 lots left. The builder is long gone. He told me that the builder works out of South Carolina and kind of jumps all over the place, but he's been gone for about 2 years, so these lots are available. He told us that he can probably get these lots, he feels like, for between 13 and 26,000.
Okay.
There's still some work that needs to be done in the subdivision. I think there was a couple of roads that need to be finished, and also the subdivision was supposed to have a play area, like a playground, that still
Mm-hmm.
needs to be completed.
Okay.
Um, so that's how he plans on getting them to the lower end of 13,000 by saying, "Hey, I'll do this. I'll add the playground. I'll fix these streets to get these lots at this low price."
All right.
The
Okay.
lots are located in Powder Springs, Georgia, which is a pretty good area. It's not too far from Marietta, and they're building the new Braves Stadium right around that area.
Okay.
The intent for the borrower is to sell these houses at 249. He said between 249 and 349.
Okay. All right.
Um, what else do you want to know?
Um, well, how should we do this, guys? Should one of us go ahead and start asking questions, or should I give it a start uh, or Bo or Barry? Anybody want to try it?
Well, I was just you can start, but I was just curious when you said 14 and 36,000. That's per lot you're talking about, correct?
13 to 26,000.
13,
Yes,
13 to
per lot.
26. I missed that.
Mhm.
Per lot. Okay, thanks.
Okay. So a couple of what I'll do is I'll ask the questions as though you were a borrower or as though you're a broker or as though I was looking at the deal myself, and then so we'll kind of go through the process that we typically do. So you mentioned that the general contractor is pretty experienced in new construction and rehab. That's good, but the builder What do you know how they're defining the builder? Is the builder the owner of the current owner of the land, I'm assuming?
No, the lots are owned by the bank.
Ah, okay, that's helpful. Okay. And is it a local small town bank or is it a bigger commercial bank?
I didn't ask that question.
Okay. The only reason I ask that is that sometimes on the smaller, especially the community banks, we find that the banks are a lot more willing to work with local contractors, and they may well do some sort of financing package, or maybe allow for some possible special financing structuring that might open up some opportunities.
Okay.
Did you get the sense at all that there was urgency behind any of it, or is it more just a matter of just want to get some things done on it?
No, he said that it's not since I mean these lots have been sitting now for about 2 years.
Okay.
Um, and although the realtor does get about 2 to 3 calls per week, but she said that the calls are more so people, just your ordinary people wanting to um, build
Okay.
homes,
Okay, that's a good sign. That's a
not
good sign
contract.
because, yeah, that means hopefully that there's a relative. I mean, it could be an indicator of a relatively strong market there. And I'll just go down the items as you shared them with me. So the 18 lots, personally, I like something about that size and smaller. Generally speaking, they can be pretty good to work with, especially if you're able to structure a financing deal where you can maybe work with the bank and take it out in phases, or work with the borrower to help them take it out in phases. So it might be a matter of 4 lots at a time, or 2 lots at a time, or maybe even 1 lot, but depending on what the demand for the market is. So that's a good
Yeah, and Tom, actually, he said that the builder
sign.
who,
I did,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
yeah.
I was just going to
Nope.
say that
You're
the my borrower did say that the builder, when he did build a couple of years ago, that's what he did. He did 5 houses at a time. As they sold, he moved on.
okay. Okay. And is there a reason that you know of, other than that did he lose interest, or what is his reason for? Is he just a type that bounces around? I'm just asking that because if there's any flags that you can see, if there's a reason that he didn't think it was worth his time to continue on it.
He lost the other 18 lots, and I don't know why.
Okay, so he was the previous owner. Okay,
Hmm.
gotcha. All right, and then the 13 to 26,000 per lot. That must mean there's either differences in sizes, differences in quality of the lots. Did you get any sort of a description on that at all?
Uh, no, I did not.
Okay, not real critical. What I would probably do at this point on that item would be go to Google Earth and get a little bit of a feel for what's there. Are they wooded lots? Are they open lots? Are they massive slopes? Are they, maybe there's some wetlands in part of it? And then is this, another question I would have is this in the city? Is it on the outskirts of the city? Is it possibly a spot zoning out in the country? Does it have city services? Those would be questions that I would ask. Do you know any of those answers?
If I was to take a guess, Tom, I would say that this is in the city because he said that it is very close to a popular school, high school, very good
Okay.
school district.
Okay, that's good to know. Great. Good. All right. And then the roads that are needed, that could be a pretty critical piece because of obviously because of the cost, but also because of the timing. Did you get any more details around the need for the road?
He said that the road still needs 2 inches of asphalt, and the estimated cost of completion is 75,000.
Oh, okay, that's good to know. And so if they have asphalt, if all it's needed is the asphalt, it probably has the subgrade, the class 5, the whatever the requirements are. If it required curb and gutter, more than likely that is already in. If it's ready for the asphalt or the bituminous, so that's good. It would be interesting to know whether there are city services, which if it's that close to the school, it may or may not be. A lot of times school districts will build their schools on the outskirts of town, so it may or may not be. In more of the rural areas they do that. So it may or may not be city services, but all right. And then the play area, that typically with a development, they are going, the city or the municipality or the county generally requires some sort of a set aside or a commons area. And did he give you any indication at all as to the extent or the size or the scope of that play area, what the costs might be for that?
He did. He said the pavilion area still needs to be completed. Estimated cost of completion is $10,000. This
10,000.
and roads can be completed by the builder himself in the negotiation with the lots.
Okay, all right. Potter Springs, Georgia, pretty good area. You said. Are you nearby that area? Where are you? I'm not even sure where you're located.
I'm in Cartersville, which is right outside of Marietta. So I'm
Okay.
maybe. I mean, we can certainly drive by that, and we wanted to just to kind of see what those homes look like.
Great, great. That's good. That certainly makes it easier if you're able to do that. And then the sale price at $249 to $349. Do you know? Did they give any indication as to the size of the homes that they were thinking of putting up?
I think he said in our meeting that these houses were between 3,000 and 3,500 around in that area.
Okay, and do you know if that's on one floor, or is that maybe a two-story with that
It's a
size?
two-story. He said the master is on main or the second floor, all bedrooms down, all bedrooms up. So yes, they are two-story homes.
And probably, what would that be? 3 bed, 2 bath?
I I think they're 4 2s.
4 2. Okay. All right. Um, okay. So, does anybody anybody else want to share in some questions?
I just was curious about the cost to build. Is that what the 249 to 349 is? Is that cost to build or sell?
No, that's his selling price. He
Do you
says
know?
the estimated model home cost is 210,000.
To build.
Yes.
Okay. So,
He
all
says
right.
the estimated profit per house is 35,000.
His
Okay.
numbers.
That's like $65 a foot building costs.
Yeah.
And that's pretty low.
The
Did your
total
builder?
amount and the total amount that he's asking for is $1,074,000.
Okay, so about $1 million.
Does
What
he have
do you know how
does he
much?
have,
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
no, does he have a plan as far as time wise, how he was gonna? I mean, it sounds like he wants you to to put in a lot of money. Is that for 5 home? What is that number that represent that he's asking for?
That's for all 18 lots. But what he wants to do is, he says, I would like to build 4 to 5 model homes, believing that we could sell over half of the lots as pre-sale. And the total, he wants to complete the project in 12 to 16 months.
Hmm. Interesting. Tom, David is asking, excuse me, or saying that I would suggest going to the city and find out the background on the property and risks. Get the story. Yeah, I think we all agree with that, don't we?
Yeah,
Thanks.
absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, and I think you just shared some thoughts here, Nicole, that and this is really why I always try to go right back to the very basics, and that is what are the 5 key items, right? So we have what is the purchase price, what is the construction cost, what is the amount of time it's going to take, and in this case, with this type of a project, I would do it on a per house basis. So the per lot cost, the construction cost per home, the number of months it'll take to complete and resell the home, the amount of cash the borrower is going to put in per home, and then the completed value. And my very first indication or indicator on it would be to say 35,000 net profit on a project that averages 300,000 on a resale. I'm going to guess, but I don't know this, but I'm going to guess that they probably have not built in commissions for resale. So at 35,000 on 300,000, you're at about 11%, just over 11% net profit. If you take a 6% or 7% selling commission out of that, still, indications are that it would be really tight on an individual basis, much less if the development is bought as a full development, because when it's purchased at $1 million purchase price, the interest costs on that $1 million is going to be huge, unless all homes are built at exactly the same time, which obviously that wouldn't make any sense.
Right.
So the very first indicator that I mean, and it doesn't mean that we don't go further and look at it and iron or look at more detail, but to really start at that base point, if we can't get past the point, let's say the borrower had no cash to put into it, that to me would be, based on these numbers, would probably be a deal killer. Let's say that there was no commission put in, and using the numbers, you said between $249 and $349 is what the sale price would be. So using a $300,000 average, again, it just initial indicators are that it's really a skinny deal. But what would I do in this case? If I was talking to this borrower, I would find out a couple of things. I would find out how much cash he was planning on putting in, and boy, I don't know. It's going to be hard to squeeze. Well, let me ask you everybody else's opinion. Nicole and Mandy and Barry and Bo. Any thoughts on your part?
I ran the numbers on an analyzer, and I kind of took the middle of the road, 30,000 purchase price. That's 20,000 for the lot and 10,000 in improvements. Is that the number that you had, 30,000 as a base cost for the land?
Mm-hmm. 13 to
26, right?
yeah. Mm-hmm.
I just put it at 20,000 plus 10 grand to improve them. So you got a $30,000 basis in the lot, 210,000 for the rehab, 300,000, like you said, Tom. 6 months of carry, and you can come up with about $7,000 at the end.
Yeah.
On one unit, and like you
and
said,
that's without selling commission, right?
That's plugs in 6% for selling commission,
Oh, okay.
and
Gotcha.
closing costs and points and 12% interest.
Yeah, so that's assuming everything goes as planned. What is that, about a 2.5% net profit? Or a...
2.3, yeah.
Okay.
So if you can get the seller of the property to work with you, and you don't have that upfront interest, maybe you can offset some of your interest in a construction loan where you're only paying for the amount of money that you use, versus if we're, in this scenario, we're calculating the interest for the full term.
Yeah. One thing I would say on this is that there are a few things that I'll go back to the days back in the 80s and 90s when I was doing a lot of sort of the starter home new construction. I remember one development that I did where we had the agreement with the bank that they were going to carry the lots. They would carry the cost of the lots. They would also finance the the improvements. It was similar to this, a little bit smaller than this one, but they financed the improvements and they carried the lots. I put all the work into the project, and then what I did is I worked with the contractors, the local lumberyard. This was back when the economy was doing pretty poorly, and I worked with the local lumberyard and the other the plumbers, electricians. I knew them all well, and we had good working relationships. So what I did in that case, but in that case, I was the borrower, or I was the developer, and I did all of the work on the property, and a lot of the contractors would carry their work until the end, until the property sold. Not all of them would, but a lot of them would. That's about, I mean, and that's a stretch. What that does is it basically leaves us as lenders out. But for that borrower, based on the tight numbers that are working here, that I see, that may be a possibility for that borrower. But it just I'd be pretty careful. But with that being said, the other thing that I would say is that bank, or especially if it's a small town bank, if they look at it and you can show them, or the borrower can show them the exact numbers, show them what's happening and why the numbers don't pencil out. A lot of times there can be some substantial negotiations done if there's really truly a good solid set of numbers that can be backed up. Because they don't want to just hang on to something that doesn't have value, and unless this market is just in a really bad market temporarily, you know, they probably don't want to hang on to them for a long time either. So.
Okay.
Hey, Tom, David also has another comment. He said, I realize this is an obvious thought, but I haven't heard it said yet. Making sure that the average sale price in the area and days on market, so you are sure it's the right price range and can sell it quickly, which is a good point. A little further down the road than we're talking. But also Kelvin said it's an REO possibility of the bank to carry back on that.
Very good.
Which is also, and I think that, Tom, that goes to your whole idea of, you know, just opening up, having the borrower open up a discussion with the bank about, you know, reducing the price. The only other thing I would say is that we're guessing here that, Nicole, when you're talking with the borrower and trying to do your estimates, to ask directly. In other words, what is that, the size of that, you know, that first home that they want to, you know, build, so you can get a good, accurate idea. Although in this case, I think Bo's estimates are really excellent, because they're not going to be that far off, really, from what he was probably saying. But it's a good idea to have apples and apples, so that you look at what the size lot compared to the house that he's going to build, you know, as far as the price, so you can get closer to drill down to those numbers.
Okay.
And I think taking a look at, you know, market saturation, I'm assuming in that area that's probably above median price. So, which to me, I'm a little bit leery about the $65 a square foot cost to build, their ability to build a good, you know, decent looking quality home for that. But then the phasing out, even 18, is still quite a few homes in a smaller neighborhood, so you could be saturating the market even phasing it out. And as Tom mentioned, the longer these are phased out, depending on how the financing is structured, there's a huge amount of interest carry that can really, you know, swallow the whole back end.
Yeah.
Yeah. So does that help when we look at it? Like, if you break it, if we can break it down right to the most basic core piece, and again, it's taking initially it's taking 18 lots, and it sounds like a big thing to wrap our mind around. But if we can break each one of those 5 items down into a per home basis. And granted, at this point, it's going to be certainly back of the envelope numbers, but until we can at least get down to that point, if we don't do it that way, at least this has been my experience, one can spend hours and hours trying to get all these little pieces of information when really 20 minutes one should be able to get a good enough feel to at least go to the next set of questions with the borrower, a set of questions
Right.
with the bank, to be able to really narrow down all the time that's put into it. So,
Right. Yeah. Makes sense.
all right.
And Bo, I would say that also the only other thing for Nicole to think about is your estimates were based on a 50-50 split, correct?
Yeah, I would either, typically what I do is try to average out the whole, you figure out your product mix on 18 units, figure out what your costs are, and how many units of each size you're going to do, and then add up the totals and average them out, and then you could run a quick calculation. And if you don't know what all the product mix is going to be, then you've really got to take one size house and figure out what's it going to cost. Well, if you had 3 different plans, take the middle house and figure out the costs and how much you're going to allocate to the land, and just run it on the kind of the middle range house. Because you're always going to, the bigger the square footage and the more of you build, typically the more money you're going to make, right? If you run it off the smaller house, you may not get as much mileage as the middle range.
Gotcha. Okay.
All right. Does that any other questions you can think of, Nicole, or what do you think is going to be your next step?
So I think, we've already negotiated with the borrower for a 50-50 split. So that's fine. And the borrower has already said, this is just one of the projects that I'm looking at. And he said if this is not a deal breaker for us, so if this doesn't work, it's fine. So I think that the next step would be for us to set up another meeting, and I'll tell him what I want as far as just breaking down the houses. Let's just look at one house and the numbers on it so that he can see the numbers on it too, and why we think that this really wouldn't work.
Great. Great. No, I think that's a really good idea, and again, that knowing who the bank is or who the owner of the property is, there might be some inroads there possibly too. So, all right. Any other comments? Anyone? Nicole, what would be really nice, great, would be if you were to maybe give us an update next week, if you wouldn't mind, as to what you found out, and
Sure.
we can see where this might head, and if it's not this development, maybe working with your borrower on the next development. The biggest thing that what you just said was you now have a borrower that understands the value of teaming up with a lender and doing the borrower-lender, the JV type of relationship, yet keeping it a borrower-lender relationship. And so that's a nice hurdle that you've already taken care of. So that part is good.
Hey, Tom?
So, yeah.
There's a question. Bob is asking, could you back into the calculation by determining what the desired profit is per unit, including additional upgrades to the site, and then approach the bank with an offer?
That, I would say that's really what I would probably do in a case. So that's a very good point. I mean, the way usually a bank is going to want to know, well, if this isn't the number, then what is, and why do you think this is a number? So that would be definitely the next logical thing to do, is to come back and say, this number doesn't work, but if you're able to do these numbers and maybe this sort of carryback or whatever the key, whatever the items might be. But absolutely, that's very true and very good point, Bob.
The reality is that most of the country land became worthless over the last 6 years. I mean, if you can't, the housing cost is pretty well fixed, and everybody's got to make a profit or they're not going to do it, and interest is interest. The only variables are these landowners. They're either going to work with you and discount, or they're going to do a carryback, or whatever the price will bear for the land. The land, in my mind, has always been the last number. It's only worth whatever you can build on it and make a profit.
Mm-hmm.
So if you can spell that story and back, like you said, back down into it and come up with a dollar amount, maybe that dirt's only worth $6,000 a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And if that seller's not ready to sell at $6,000 a lot, it's going to sit there until they are, or the price of houses go up. And I doubt the price of building a house is going to go down. So
that's a good point, Bo. Would you say, and you dropped the number of 6,000? What do you, based on your numbers that you had, what do you see? And while you're doing a little number crunching there, Bo, Nicole, you mentioned the $13,000 to $26,000 per lot. Was that the truth? Was that what he was hoping to buy them from the bank for, or was that what they were saying the retail value was?
That is what he was hoping to buy them from the bank at. I think
Okay.
they're priced at 26, and he's trying to get them for 13 because of the work that needs to be done in the subdivision.
Okay, well then that would add $3,500 to Bo's number, to Bo's $7,000 right there, because if he could get them for the 13,000, I think Bo, you said you used 20,000 on the average, so that could add a little bit of room. But I probably the one thing that I would be really careful of, though, is not ever committing to more than maybe 1 or 2 lots at a time. And because, like Mandy said, an area like this, if these are higher end homes, they're probably going to sell a fair amount slower than what your average bread and butter homes would sell. And that's not conclusive, but I mean, generally speaking, they sell slower than the bread and butter, the average starter homes sell as far as speed.
So, and I had one more question. The borrower called us today and said that he needed a letter of intent.
Mm-hmm.
Um, do we have something like that on any of our banker sites?
I don't know if there. Oh, yeah, there's. I know there's one on there because I had shared one a long time ago. I know that there's a proof of funds letter on there, and I think it's under wealth classes portion, or I don't know if we have any under our reach out site or not. But I think what he's looking for is to get verification from a lender that there is sufficient interest and there's sufficient capital if everything works out under the due diligence. So the bank or the seller really wants to know that they're working with somebody who has the interest in doing it and the capacity to do it, so that they know that they're not wasting their time with people who are wishful about what they can do. So,
I mean, we have a proof of funds letter, but the verbiage that he used, letter of intent, I didn't know if that was a different document that I wasn't aware of.
Yeah, LOI or letter of intent is a very commonly used way of doing it. It could be a letter of intent. It could be a term sheet. Well, no, a letter of intent would be before the term sheet in this case. But yeah, really, it tells the bank or the seller who the party is that's interested in working with them, with their borrower, or with the buyer or the borrower, and it gives that lender the opportunity to look. Like, for instance, when we send out we call ours a verifiable proof of funds letter, which just means that the seller can contact us directly. They can contact me or my business partner Chuck directly, and they can have a discussion with us. We can share with them our background. We can share with them the details about our fund. And if we get them to where they call us, then we've never had a proof of funds letter not accepted. A lot of times, though, it's going to be the gatekeeper, it's going to be the real estate agent or the broker that will demand that it be an actual bank statement, but that's really generally speaking because they don't understand that they don't want to waste their time either, and so they push for the bank statement, which very often that's not necessary, and it's not realistic, especially on bigger properties. So.
Hey, Tom, Kelvin has a suggestion, actually, and Kim piggybacks onto it. Kelvin said if the local market is trending up, one option is to just wholesale the lots, and then Kim adds to that, saying perhaps just do the deal to bring improvements with the idea of selling before development as well.
Mm-hmm.
Both good suggestions, too, depending on the area. You'd have to risky. Also, especially if I think if the lots haven't been selling at this point, but worth thinking about though.
Yeah, yeah. With adding improvements to the lots, this was 18 lots, and putting in additional roads of 75 or 85,000 with the play area and the roads. Again, it's what really digs into it quickly is those carrying costs for the work. While the work is being done, the cost of the what was it, $1 million that he was hoping to. Let's just look at that though. What is 13 times 18?
13 times 18?
Yeah.
It is 104. Right?
Okay, so that is where the $1 million came from then. So 18 lots times 13,000. Okay. So again, that interest at 1% a month on $1 million is what is that? $10,000 a month.
Yeah, I think Bo's point of the fact that land, in a down market, land has very little value.
Mm-hmm.
The cost of the improvements is substantial, which is adding, substantial amount to the cost of each lot. How much added value have you established? Probably no more than the cost of what you've had to put in for the improvement.
Exactly.
The profit is in the actual construction, the build out.
Sure. Just one last thing on the development part of it. One of the reasons that developing land can be quite lucrative is that land can be purchased at, as a very rough guideline. This is a number that I had used for many years, and that's you need to pick up the land for no more than 25 to 30% of the completed value of the development. And that's assuming the average type of services, the average water and sewer and roads, that type of thing. So very, very rough rule of thumb. But if you think that the lots are going to be worth $100,000, that land really, if it costs any more than 25 to 30,000 or 25 to 30% of that number, it probably is going to be a real tough one to get through. And so that's part of the reason that developers can make it work is that they can afford to carry some of that, especially if the landowner is willing to do the subordinate carryback. I did that quite a few times where the landowner would hold. It was like almost like a joint venture where they had the land and we did the work, we did the development part of it, and but it keeps the carrying cost so much lower versus in this case, it's really buying the land at retail instead of at wholesale. So buying the land at $1 million is really pretty darn close to retail in this case, and so it's the carrying costs that really end up adding up to a lot.
Tom, David also has a suggestion here, and it's a thought that the bank would likely allow him a takedown schedule on the lots and not have to purchase them all up front.
Yeah, that would be a great way to break it down. And again, if for some reason they don't want to do it, and this is where I see the difference in the institutional lenders versus a small town bank, I think you're really going to see a lot more flexibility in the small town bank than you would the institutional lender. But on the other hand, if that institutional lender has it on the books for a certain amount of time and they have to get rid of it by the end of the quarter, whatever it might be, you may be able to get that discounted down by 50% of what they're asking for, just because of the different pressures and the different flexibilities between the two types of lenders. All right. Any other anything at all that we want to go for on this one? Otherwise, you know, I'm wondering if we should do we want to get into a couple of these other sections yet, guys, or what do you think?
It's I don't know. Did Nicole? Do you have anything else? You're on mute now. I see. Anything else on this you wanted to ask before?
No, I think I have a really good direction that I want to go with the borrower. So, I mean, this was very helpful. Dwayne and I didn't anticipate getting into new construction. So when we were presented, we had no clue of what angle or direction we were going to go in. So thank you all so much for this. This was very, very helpful.
Great.
Yeah.
And I wonder if anybody else that's listening out in in cyberspace that's on the webinar has any questions relative to what we've been talking about before we leave the topic. If you did, this is a really good time to ask them. Otherwise, Tom, it's your call. You want to?
Yeah, I think maybe what we'll do is we'll wrap it up on this. But I was going to share one other thought, and that is, Nicole, when you're working with this borrower now, to be able to go back to the borrower, and just by having gone through this exercise, you're going to be able to help them understand like what the average numbers are, or what the percentages are, and you're adding value now to that borrower by showing them what it is that could fit within your program, and you're adding different ways, different techniques, different strategies that borrower could use. So the idea being, and a lot of times we'll find that by being able to do that and being able to help them get an answer to figuring out a solution to the project, to whatever they're trying to accomplish, before they find that project, they're almost every time they're going to be happy absolutely sharing 50-50 in the profits, because they don't have in their mind, well, I've already found this project and all I need is just a little bit more. But you're adding the value of really showing them what it is they should look for, really working with them all the way through the process. And by doing that, we're adding a lot more value than any hard money lender, standard hard money lender would typically do. And we're showing them the road, the path, the way to get something unique, or get the problem solved in ways that other people can't. And with this whole business, it's about, all we have to do is identify every risk that is in a project. If we can identify the risks and the numbers are solid enough, it should be a doable deal. So that's a pretty broad way of looking at it, but the risks, whether it's the borrower, whether it's the project, whether it's the days on market, whatever those risks are, just thinking through what are the 2 or 3 biggest things that could go wrong with this, and then really identifying if we can come up with a solution to them. Then we go to the next 2 or 3 things that could possibly go wrong, and we keep working our way down to where there's just where we're very comfortable with the fact that there's virtually I shouldn't say there's almost no risk, but there's controlled risk across the board. And just by adding that value to the borrower, I think it can really it can help them find projects that they never knew were out there, and it'll help you get deals that obviously will be workable and profitable for everyone if done properly. So.
Yeah, I think there's a huge amount of value to that you said. I think Bo and I have had a lot of projects or buyers that are coming through, borrowers, sorry, that they need educating. And if you can walk them through a project that they're bringing to you that they think is a deal, you can show them all the red flags and kind of run the numbers through. And basically what you're doing is like you said, you're setting, here's why this doesn't work, here are the various components, so they know, okay, I know what to go look for next, and it's going to save all of us a lot of time, of wasted time trying to go through all these projects, where we can get in a lot deeper, a lot quicker, because they're bringing us the right project that fits the model. And what you said right up front, the fact that Nicole has a borrower that is totally on board with a 50-50 SAM, she's 3/4 of the way there. Because now, by working with this borrower and showing him that this project potentially doesn't work, here's why, they're going to be running all over town trying to find a project, because they'll be so excited to do one with you. So I think we're really in a good situation right now.
Yeah. And we talk about the 50-50 SAM because we're all on this call, we're all comfortable with that because of our background. But if there are people that are listening, and it doesn't have to be a 50-50 SAM, it's really whatever that solution is to that problem. If we can provide that, we're providing so much more than anybody, than lenders typically will do. But very, very good points, Mandy.
Tom, I just was curious, Nicole, if you had, I'm sure you have a lot of takeaways from this call, and I'm just thinking for everyone else that's listening, probably one of the most important things when being presented. Oh, you're very popular today, Nicole.
Your fan club is called.
Okay. I'm so sorry.
No, it's okay. I'm just teasing you. But one of the big, I think one of the big takeaways for others listening, when you get a big project like this, as Tom with great craft has shown all of us, is to really drill it down into a smaller chunk. In other words, to look at it, you get 18 lots, but to look at it one lot, and you get a whole bunch of different size homes or whatever. You try to really look at it on an individual basis, and then you can multiply the rest. But I think that the most important, one of the important things for people to realize when analyzing a deal like this is to really look at it, in an individual way, and that can really help you, analyze the entire deal as it is. Would you say that was a important part for you, Nicole?
Yes, absolutely. And like Mandy said, being able to educate the borrower as to why this doesn't work, why these don't work for my model, our model. I think that's key. He's fixed, and he said, I've made investors thousands of dollars, and he said, and it just hit me, like, why am I not doing this for myself? Sure. And he said, and that's what I want to use you for. I want to leverage your money. I know how to fix and flip these properties, and I want to utilize you, and here's one of the projects I'm looking at. So we weren't, opposed to looking at it. We want to get into new construction anyway, just to learn more about it. So this is, like I said, it's been extremely helpful, and I'm very thankful for you guys.
Hey, Nicole, you have a compliment here from Mike. He said, "I like that you always look to add value to the borrower's situation." I think that's probably for everyone, but for you, especially in this situation, Nicole.
Yeah. Thank you.
You just shared something too, Nicole, which when I was raising my kids, it was kind of the whole idea of when you go to a bank and they say no, you feel much better if they give you really good, succinct reasons as to why you said no, and you explain to them. So when we were raising my kids, our kids, we took the time to explain it to them, and then they understood, then they knew what to look for the next time. And so just a little bit of a comparison there, but it's how we all like to be treated. We want if we take the time to explain why it did or didn't work, it's so much different than if you go to a bank a lot of times.
Hey, Tom, you get a compliment from Kim as well, and she said, Tom, I like the use of rules of thumb so you can get a gut feeling as to pursue or not. Good.
Thank you, Kim. Thank you. Great. Well, we used up just about an hour here. Nicole, again, thank you very much for joining us. If you want to hang on the line after we go off the air, then we'll share a couple of thoughts too. But
sure.
Anybody else have anything else that they want to share for the session here? Yes.
I would just say to everyone listening that you can obviously see that Nicole really benefited from being a guest. That you could email any of us on this call, and let us know if you want to join us. And if you have a deal like this, we'd be more than happy to have you be a guest.
Yeah. Thank you, Barry. Thank you. All right. With that, I think we're going to sign off until next week. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. And until then, happy lending.
Okay.